Good evening, everybody, and welcome to SKR. Welcome to round 4 of season 6. And tonight we're having a sprint race, first sprint race of the season. And due to time constraints, there will be no qualifying session. We will be having a reverse grid. Reverse grid will be based on the current championship standings, I believe. And obviously it will be the reverse of those standings. So should be an interesting sprint race with some of the faster runners coming through from the back. And then obviously that sprint race will also determine the grid for the main race. Streams have been doing pretty well over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I want to thank everybody who does join us for the racing, whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching it or listening to it later on in the week. Thanks for the support on the channel. We now await the beginning of the sprint race. Remember, there is a 2-minute break between the sprint race and the main race, shortened from 5 minutes due to time constraints. Good evening to Pampers in the comment section. It's a name I remember. I'm not sure if I've raced against it or commentated on it, but I recognize the name. Welcome to the stream. We are simply awaiting the start of the sprint race. Last time I had a look, we had 18 drivers starting this race. I'm not sure if a few more have been able to join. We'll soon find out. Welcome to Death Queen in the comment section. You've made it just in time. 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights, and they're off. And so are the cars. There we go. Alfa Romeo is going to lead the way from an Aston Martin into turn 1. Aston Martin runs wide, but the Mercedes runs even wider. Reezy loses a place early on in the race. Harsh Cartoon leads from the front. Gotsi P2. Apmagozi holding on to P3. Remember, this order is reversed. We started this race from the reverse order of the championship positions. This will determine the order for the race. You're going to see the quicker drivers coming from the back to the front, and you're going to see the slower drivers at the front defending for all they're worth. Disguise P9, second of the Mercedes, also making his way through the field. Another man on the move is Virus in the Alfa Romeo, soon to be renamed. I'm going to have to relearn all these names, and I'm going to have to figure out how to shorten them as well. Virus up another position. He's up in P7, Skull P6. Divan, the first of the 2 Haas drivers, up in P5. He's chasing Reezy. Remember, Reezy's going to be defending for all he's worth. Just 8 laps in this race. If you don't get any damage, there's no reason to make any pit stops. You'll be finishing on the same tyre you started on. It's the end of lap 1. Harsh Cartoon goes over the line in the lead. Gotsi P2, Apmagozi P3. Those three at the front have been able to hold station very nicely, holding on to their positions for now. That will become a lot more difficult on lap 3 when DRS becomes active. At that point, if the car behind you is quicker, it's simply impossible to defend. Haas gets through on Reezy and Divan up into 4th place. His next target will be the Williams of Atmagozi, holding on to 3rd place nicely so far. Three-second time penalty already early on in the race. Lap 2 of 8, 3 seconds going the way of Wasp. That's the second Red Bull. And if that's any indication of what we're going to see going further on into the evening, I think we may see a heck of a lot of penalties in the main race. We have our first penalty of the evening, and it's on lap 2 of 8 in the sprint race. Atmagozi now beginning to drop through the field. Made a little bit of a mistake, lost a bit of momentum, and now everybody's pouncing on him. He went down from P3 now into P5, and he's got a whole swarm of cars on his gearbox. Looking for a way to get through. Skull P6, Virus P7. Now drivers will also start to feel the effects of getting stuck in a DRS train, and that'll make things a lot more difficult to get past. Virus P7, Afro P8. Venom also on his way through the order, as is Mr. Rem. Pantry Star, one of the top performers in the season so far, having a good season. He's down in P11. Mr. Rem, Ulrich, the first of the 2 Red Bulls. Remember, only the top 8 score points in the sprint race. Andre, another one of the quick drivers towards the back of the field. Seems simple, you're quicker than the rest, you should be coming through the field, but it's so easy to trip over somebody on the way, make a mistake on the way, and then you find yourself stuck either in the back of the field or somewhere in the midfield, and you just don't have that little extra to get you to the front. And it will be crucial because, like I said earlier, it's going to set the grid for the main race, so you want to get as high up in the order as you can. Osh Cartoon leads the way, 1.5 seconds is the gap. Gotzi still P2, doing a great job to stay there. Divan P3. And Reezy, first driver off the podium positions, doing everything he can to stay with those podium positions. Skull P5, Afro P6, he's making his way up the field. Man going backwards down the field is Atmagozi. He's lost 3 positions in a matter of corners. So I think he's just had another loss of momentum. And now he's coming under pressure from a Red Bull. And looks like Ulrich might have this pass already sorted out. And I thought he did, but he went in deep, ran wide, and he's allowed Atmagozi back into 10th place for now. Harsh Cartoon still leads. Gotzi just not able to hold on. You can see that gap just increasing ever so slightly, 1.9 seconds. Safely out of the DRS zone. Then Divan P3 No one in this top three relatively close together. Reezy P4. He is under pressure from Skull. And then further back, Venom leads a mini DRS train of 4 cars. Venom, Pantry Star, Afro and Mr. M all together in the field. And all fighting for what will eventually be 6th place. We mentioned the penalties a little earlier on, and the second Red Bull has become the second victim of penalties this evening. So we have 2 3-second time penalties in the field, and both of them belong to the Red Bull team. 3 seconds to Ulrich, 3 seconds to the Wasp. No penalties anywhere else on screen, which is crucial. Pantry Star having a great race. He's made up 10 positions since the start of the race. Reezy started P4. He's just lost the 1 position down in P5. Good sprint race for him so far. And as I say that, he starts to get under pressure here. Pantry had a look. Divan also 8 positions since the start of the race. Ooh, we've had a car go sideways. Seems like we've had 2 cars go sideways. The one was an Aston Martin, the other one will come into picture shortly. It was an Alpha Tauri. So I think that is Afro and Andre that have gone into each other. Stewards will have a better look at that after the race, as we didn't see it on our screens. Gotsi still P2, Harsh Cartoon still in P1, but he has made a mistake somewhere because he has lost a bit of time. That gap was almost up at 2 seconds. And now it's down to 1.2. Gotsi actually getting awfully close to breaking that DRS barrier, and if he's able to do that, we might still get a bit of a surprise at the end of this race. Seems like Harsh Cartoon has had everything handled, but now in the closing stages, Gotsi just starting to make a bit of an impression on that gap. And that is probably the reason why Harsh Cartoon is on a set of softs, Gotsi and Diban on a set of mediums. Harsh Cartoon would have had the superior grip in the early stages of the race, which would have made it easy for him to disappear into the distance, but now those softs will start to be going the other way, and the tyre you'll want to be on is the medium. So maybe this race might just come to Gotsi at the end. He's really catching up. Gap in front of him now, just 1.1 seconds. As for Divan, he's still further down the road, 3 seconds, not really in a battle. Skull P4 also chose to go out on softs. May find himself dropping down the order now if those softs have passed their peak. Pantry Star P5 looking up to make more positions, hasn't made up enough. Reezy P6, he's held on pretty nicely in this race, started in P3 I believe. Mr. Rem, P7. And then Ulrich making up the final point. Nearest battle we have on track right now is Pantry Star and Skull. They're fighting for 4th position, but they're not that close on track, 9/10 of a second. Gotsi now might be starting to think about it. It's getting closer and closer, 0.6 of a second. It's lap 7 of 8. When they go over the line, they'll be on the final lap. And then he's going to have one more attempt. Kotze still looking for a way past. He's not close enough into turn 1. Further down the order, Venom trying to get through on Apmagozi, who's still in P10. Managed to stay within the top 10 since the start of the race. Disguise down in P14, hasn't had the race he would have liked. Third penalty has popped up on our screens, and it's for Reezy. Just to confirm, also a 3-second penalty. And Wasp has picked up a second, so he's up to 6. We're tallying up the penalties at the end of the race. Remember, this is just an 8-lap race, so I think we're going to see a lot more penalties in the feature race. Kotze leads the way now from Harsh Cartoon. Taiwan P3. Bantry Star still in P4, but he doesn't really look in contention now for a podium. Kotze has pulled this off just at the right time. The beginning of the race didn't really look like he had what it took to stay with Harsh Cartoon. We saw that gap get all the way up to 2 seconds, then started reeling him in. And now he's got past the man who's led the race from the start. And Harsh Cartoon tries to fight back one more time, but he's run out of tarmac, and Kotze left it late and pulled it off. Kotze wins from Harsh Cartoon, Divan P3, Pantry Star P4, Skull P5. And the drivers will continue to come over the line, and remember, this will be your grid order. This is the final runner. It's Wasp in the second Red Bull. His teammate has finished up the road in P12. We now just wait for the 3 cars of Chums, Disguise and Wasp. And there we go. So there we go, there are your official results for the sprint race. Kotze winning the race, left it till late, but perfect timing. Harsh Cartoon P2, lost out to that lead right at the end. Divan P3. Then we have Pantry Star P4, Skull P5, Mr. Rem P6, Reezy P7, and Afro managing to get into that top 8 points paying positions. Outside the points, we've got Venom in 9th, Andre 10, Apmagozi 11, Ulrich 12, Virus 13, Chums 14, and Disguise and Wasp making up the field in 14th and 15th, make it 15th and 16th. No retirements in the sprint race. Just a reminder that there will be a 2-minute break before the start of the race, and then we should be underway for round 4 here in Belgium. I will take a minute break and I will be back with you. Speak to you then. Alright, there we go, and we're back. Coming up, round 4, SKR here in Belgium. We just finished our sprint race. Gotti was the winner of that race, which means he should be starting from pole position at Magosi. Seems like he had some issues with the lobby, but he's back just in time. So Spa-Francorchamps, 50% distance. It's going to be 22 laps of the 7-kilometer circuit, just over 7 kilometers. Longest track on the calendar. Total of 19 corners, and they're pretty well split up. 9 to the left and 10 to the right. Guys will now just be doing those final touches to the setup, to the strategy. A lot of the guys like to underfuel in anticipation of a safety car. On Monday night, I commentated on a race where half the field underfueled in anticipation of a safety car, and there was no safety car. I see we have a very vocal viewer in the comment section. I welcome you to the stream. I would say I hope you're enjoying the race, but clearly by your comments you're not enjoying the race. But I do thank you, because your boredom tonight is my entertainment. There we go, folks, 5 red lights, and shortly we will be underway. Gotti leads the way into turn 1. Harsh Cartoon is able to hold on to P2, even though he ran wide, looked like he was going to lose that. Now Pantry Star, not on lap 1, you don't want to try anything funny. Up, ready on. Top 3 are Gotti, Harsh Cartoon, Pantry Star, Divan P4, Mr. Rem P5. He's just slipped down into P6. Afro promotes himself up into P5. Aston Martin from Alpine, from Alfa Romeo. Early stages, Divan, Mr. Rem, Ulrich, Andre makes up a position. Andre gets past Ulrich. He's now up into P7, two Red Bulls, 8 and 9. Starting to see a few raindrops on our screens, a few raindrops on lap 1 of 22. I probably should have checked the weather, but I wasn't aware that rain was on the way. There we go. Rain is on the way, and this is going to mix things up. To Mercedes, P11, P12. Look at all the changes, all the changes. Now it's quite evident that there is rain falling, but when is it time? When is the right time to come in, put on a set of intermediates? If you go too early, that can hurt you as well. Remember, if you're on the wrong tire around here, it's a 7-kilometer circuit. It takes a heck of a long time to get all the way around, and we've got an incident. First incident of the evening. He hasn't retired, but he's lost that entire front wing, and Gotzi from the lead of the race. Mistake really all on his own, and that's activated a virtual safety car. Good time to have a look at the tires. Just the two drivers at the back of the field, Venom and Chums, on a set of Inters. How much they would love a safety car right now. It would mean the entire field would probably peel in for Inters, and they'd find themselves at the front of the field. Lap 2 of 22, we are on the virtual safety car. Virtual safety car neutralizes the race, so we have no position changes. Pantry star from Afro, Divan P3. This VSC was activated by a mistake from the leader. It was Gotzi at the time, but now everyone, as you can see, just peeling into the pits. All except for Ulrich. Ulrich decides to stay out, as does Divan. No, Divan has jumped into the pits, sorry. So Ulrich, the only man, deciding to stay out. He stayed out on the soft, and this may be a costly mistake for him. Look at the queue coming out of the pits. Ulrich P1, but that P1 is in question. Remember, he's on a set of softs, and he'll be doing everything he can to hold on to that car, because my goodness, this track has gotten very wet very quickly, and he is most certainly on the wrong tire. Afro P2, Divan P3, and watch those gaps. Ooh, and another incident from the man that was in the lead. But this time, it's Ulrich. Can't blame him, he was on the wrong tyre. Track was very slippery. And now he's going to have to crawl back to the pits with a broken wing on the wrong set of tyres. And it's not going to be a very pleasant next couple of corners for him. Afro leads from Divan. And Ulrich, oh my goodness, Ulrich, he came into the pits a little bit quickly, no front wing, obviously got understeer, and he has flown into the barrier at the entry of the pits. And that is the end of the evening for Ulrich, and he becomes our first retirement of the night. There we go, we're back. Sorry about that. Change of headphones needed. Afro leads the way from Divan, Pantry Star P3, Mr. M P4, Andre P5. Death Queen showing support for Andre yet again. Doing well up in P5, just the one retirement, and we're very lucky that retirement did not cause a safety car because it was in a very unfortunate position right in the entry of the pit lane. Afro leads the way, Divan P2, Pantry Star P3. And this race becomes very different. Just because you're quick in the dry, that does not translate to the wet. Sometimes drivers can be a lot quicker in the wet. Sometimes drivers just don't do any practice in the wet, and it really shows on race day. 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane for Disguise. He was at the back of the field anyway. Gap growing from Afro to Divan, 2.4 seconds, then Pantry Star in P3, Mr. M P4. Andre still holding station in P5. First of the Red Bulls, P6, that's Wasp. And we have Venom P7, Harsh Cartoon, who led for so much of that sprint race and lost it with a lap to go. He's down in P8, and that car does not appear to be okay. Seemed like he was ghosting for a second. Reezy P9. And Chums making up the points paying positions. Gotzi, winner of the sprint race. Apologies. Retiree. He was the leader of the sprint race. Second Ferrari, Top Gun. So Ferrari have been in the news all week. And not for their 2024 car. Not even for the 2024 season. It's all about next year. Will definitely be an interesting era at Ferrari. Harsh Cartoon, Reezy, Chums, all very close together. Obviously in the rain, you don't have the extra help from DRS. And you just got to be that much more careful when you're making a pass. So much easier to slip, to slide, to go into your opponent, or to make a mistake all on your own. Andre now getting close to the Alpine ahead of him. Andre versus Pantry Star, gap is 0.2 of a second. And just ahead of Pantry Star is Mr. M, so effectively this is a fight for third place. And there we go, Andre. And he holds on to it. Who's going to be braver in the wet? Pampers just pointing out that Afro is in the lead of the race. Yes, he is by 4.4 seconds. Good evening for Aston Martin so far. Divan still P2, Mr. Rem. He's made his way past Pantry Star and Andre, so Mr. Rem now into P3. Almost 11 seconds covering the top three. So nothing close amongst those drivers. Andre P4. And he's trying to get back in contention for that podium. Pampers asking Afro in the lead, I wonder why. I'm not really sure. You'd have to ask him how he got there. At Magosi. Had a good start to the sprint race, then started dropping through the field. And now running around in P15. Pampers says that he knows why, but apparently he's keeping it to himself because that's the entirety of the comment. Afro leads from Divan, Mr. MP3. Further back in the field, Ferrari making a move on a Mercedes. It's Top Gun versus Reezy, and the Ferrari is the braver one. Ferrari up into P9. And just as one Ferrari goes past Reezy, a second will be appearing in his mirrors. Unfortunately, I'm on a PS5, so I wouldn't know about any programs running in the background. Reezy, we said one Ferrari had gone past him and then he was going to come under pressure from another. And now Chum's right on the back of that Mercedes, just a matter of time. Virus has just made a move on Gotzi, so he's up into P12. No change at the front. 7.5 seconds is the gap. Divan P2. Mr. M is in P3, but that's the only podium position at the moment that is under threat. Andre, still on the back of that McLaren, still looking for a way past. Lap 8 of 22. Field is already pretty spread out at this early stage. Now Andre starting to get impatient, wants to get this pass done. He's going to go side by side with the McLaren and he's going to have the inside line, but decides against it. Slots in behind the McLaren. Seems like the raindrops have visually slowed down. And this track will then start drying out. A lot of these drivers will be hoping that this track will dry out more or less where they wanted to pit in the first place. Not quite sure what happened to Pampers in the comment section, but it seems like I didn't do that, but it seems like all his comments have disappeared, so I don't know where he went. Hope to see you back in the comment section soon. Always good to have return viewers. Afro leads the way from Divan, Mr. MP3. Andre still on the hunt for a podium position. 0.3 of a second is the gap between him and the McLaren ahead. Andre doing all he can to get onto the podium. His teammate in a battle of his own with Reezy trying to get himself up into P13 and then beyond into the points. Afro has come into the pits. He had a massive lead when he did so, and he's gone out on a set of mediums. Seems like everyone's coming in for their hard tyres now. Divan, set of hards. Mr. Rem, set of hards. Andre will soon find out. Set of mediums. Good night, Pampers, and enjoy your evening. Sounds like a lovely individual, old Pampers. Disguise picks up a 5-second penalty. Afro still leads the way, 6 seconds. Remember now, basically the entire field has made a pit stop for dry tyres, with the exception of Disguise and Wasp. So we have one Red Bull and one Mercedes running around still on intermediates. That Mercedes has come in for hards. So the only driver who simply, was he caught asleep? Was he trying to avoid the double stack? I'm not quite sure what happened, but Wasp seems to be way out of sync with everyone else. And this is going to cost him dearly. Pit stop around here will cost between 20 and 25 seconds. So he will fall down this order. Andre still quite not in touch with that McLaren, just outside of DRS. And what could become crucial. is those tyre selections. Remember, lap 11 of 22, Pantry Star has decided that he can go to the end on a set of softs. That'll be a stretch. Andre and Afro in P1 and 4, they're going for the medium. And Divan and Mr. M in P2 and 3, they're going for the harder compound. So they will go later on into this race, or at least they will have a better tyre by the time the checkered flag falls. Everyone else's tyres, in particular Pantry Star, won't be looking so fresh. Remember Gotzi, he was leading that sprint race when he made a mistake. He's down in P12. His teammate, on the other hand, leads the race. Afro, 6 seconds is the gap, 5.8 to be exact. Pantry Star sets the fastest lap of the race. And Gotzi immediately gets a 3-second time penalty. I was going to say Gotzi beats the fastest lap of the race immediately, but not the same message. Five and a half seconds at the front. Andre now starting to lose touch now with the podium. 1.4 seconds. Pantry Star, another 1.5 seconds back. No real battles in the field to speak of. If you want a battle, you got to go as far back as P12. We'll find a battle between Gotzi and Reezy. Mercedes Power versus Mercedes Power. Up Radion. And Gotzi's going to hold on to it for now, but for how much longer? Because now DRS will come into effect. And will you look at that? Very nicely done. Was going to say Skull came out on top of that, but Reezy pulled it off. Reezy stays P12. Gotzi down into P14. And Skull now puts himself in the middle of that sandwich. So just a change of order. No change at the front. Afro sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1:45.1. This is Skull. The second AlphaTauri. His teammates up in P5. Skull down in P13. Still a long way to go in this race. Looks up the inside, does Gotzi. Just ran out of tarmac. He's going to have to be a little bit more patient. Now he's got DRS and he's going to try it into turn 1, but I don't think he's close enough. It'll have to be a lunge. Does go for it, but the AlphaTauri, does he hold on? AlphaTauri comes off second best. And Gotzi makes his way up into P13. Still under pressure from the AlphaTauri though. AlphaTauri this time will get DRS. Will come immediately back at him and pass him with lots of space to spare before the chicane ever arrives. And Skull back up into P13. Some of the best battles happening at the back. Lap 14 of 22. I think it's safe now for predictions. I think Afro would be the favourite. It would take a serious mistake on his part. But let me know in the comment section. If you have a keyboard nearby, if you're not in the cockpit, just listening to this in the background, and if you're actually watching, let me know. Predictions, podium. Do you think it's going to finish in this order, or we're going to see something crazy in the closing laps of this race? Andre still on the back of Pantry Star. Pantry Star still on the back of the McLaren. So P3 is far from decided. P1 seems to be in the bag. It would take a serious mistake from the Aston Martin to lose that lead. And Ferrari power versus Ferrari power. And the Alfa Romeo comes out on top. Not sure how the Tifosi would feel about that. At the front, it's been seamless. Since he's got into the lead, he's increased the gap, hasn't made any mistakes that we've been able to identify on the timing screens, and it's been enough to not only stay in front, but to get further and further away. Bring up your penalty screen on lap 15 of 22. You can see that P1 and P2 have 3-second penalties to their names. So that'll effectively cancel each other out. Wasp has a 6-second penalty next to his name. 3 apiece for Gotsi and Apmagozi. Those two names used to confuse me for the longest time. I thought it was the same person. And then Apmagozi's just gone up to 6 seconds. And Disguise, having the most penalties on the evening, he's on 8 seconds. Presume that second one was for a pit lane infringement. All the other penalties on track for track limits. Sometimes you have less track limits on a narrow track than you do on a wide track. It just shows the more tarmac you give the driver, the more tarmac he's going to use. Some of these tracks, 15 meters wide, where Monaco is just 10. Everybody's able to stay on that tarmac in Monaco, but everywhere else, everyone runs wide. Give them more, they'll take more. But that is what it's all about, using every piece of racetrack that is available to you, going up until the limit, and every now and then you forget where that limit is, go a little bit over it, and the 10th you were trying to make costs you 3 seconds. Remember, here on this channel we have at the moment 3 races a week from 2 different leagues. Remember to subscribe if you haven't done so, and hit the little bell notification so you can get a notification every time we go live for one of our races, either with SKR or with SAFRL. Sundays, Mondays and Wednesdays. Andre still on the back of the Alpine, still within DRS. Just hasn't been able to gain a lot of momentum in this race to propel himself into the top 3. Just remained there in the top 5. Venom having a lonely race. Doesn't have a car in front of him for another 16.5 seconds. And he doesn't have a car behind him for the next 4. So he'll be feeling quite lonely. And those are the easiest times to lose your concentration. Sometimes you find you're paying a lot more attention when you're in traffic. When you find yourself in open air, can't see yourself closing that gap before the end of the race, sometimes can become complacent. And if you lose your concentration at the wrong moment, on the wrong part of the circuit, sometimes there is no forgiveness, there is no second chance. Afro still clearly ahead, 9.1 seconds is the gap. Andre now eventually gets himself past Pantry Star, and you've got to wonder if it's the tyres that are now coming into play. Remember, Pantry Star, the only driver to go out on the softs, decide he's going to try and finish this race on the softs. And maybe now we will start to see him fall through the order a little bit as those tyres age. And he'll be trying to keep some life in them and trying to not let them overheat any further. But I think for now 5th place is safe. Venom almost a further 17 seconds down the road. So top 5 do seem pretty confirmed at this stage. Have to have some serious drama in the closing stages. No signs of serious drama. We had no retirements in the sprint race, and we've had just the one retirement in the feature race. That was Ulrich, much earlier on in the race. Ulrich was the only man not to put on a set of intermediates, stayed out one extra lap on the soft compound. Track got too slippery, lost a wing, and while crawling back to the pits, somehow found the barrier in the pit entry rather than the lane in the pit entry. So he retired much earlier on. Still have 16 runners out on track with 4 laps to go. Gap at the front, almost 10 seconds, almost getting to double digits. Mr. Rem P3. Andre was stuck behind Pantry Star for an awfully long time, so he'll be a little bit frustrated. He's got a set of mediums, so should have the superior tyre to the car in front of him. And a virtual safety car in the late stages. If it had been a full safety car, we'd be seeing some very interesting strategies with a 4-lap sprint to the end. But Afro chooses to come into the pits. Remember, it's not a full safety car, just a virtual safety car, but these cars will not be driving around at full speed. So the leader does get an advantage out of pitting now. And Afro will emerge from the pits, but where will he emerge from the pits? Mr. Rem goes, I was going to say he goes past, but there we go. Afro just loses the one position. But has he given himself too much to do? 6.3 seconds is the gap. And when this virtual safety car comes to an end, we'll have 2.5 laps of racing to go. And a gap of 7.1 seconds. Now the virtual safety car is supposed to neutralize the race, but we all know that it can be abused. If you're on the absolute limit of your delta, you can make up a bit of time, and if you're asleep, you can lose time. So Divan's going to want to keep that gap as high as he can, and there we go. We're back underway. 4.9 seconds, 4.1 seconds, 3.6. What is going on? Huge chunks of time falling off. And immediately, gap was almost 6 seconds. I thought it was going to be too much, but after a matter of corners, just a matter of corners, the gap is 2.5 seconds and still dropping. Afro seems to have this. Sorted. He seems to know what he was doing. I thought he was leaving it way too late, but he may just have the pace. 2.3 seconds is the gap. It's stabilized to an extent. It was dropping off in huge chunks of almost half a second at a time, and now it's just stabilized a little. And with 2 laps to go, Divan will have it in the back of his mind that he can do this. Remember, he's got a 3-second penalty, but so does Afro, so he won't lose this race as a result of a penalty. He will only lose this race if Afro is able to make his way past on the racetrack. It's the way it should be. Penalties shouldn't decide the timing screens. Hopefully it gets done on the racetrack. Andre. He's not going to let Afro venture off after Van just like that. He's going to try and give him a bit of a handful first. Andre sees a possibility of P2. Now, he may not have the pace to stay in front of Andre, but when you in front of... Just go back to the front, because look at that gap, 1/10 of a second. Divan leads from Afro. Afro has not left this late. He wants to do this now. Wants to get past. Not going to leave it for the last lap. And now surely. Although the household station thought he was going to have the inside, but the Aston Martin got ahead and closed the door. And now surely it's going to be a one-way street. Divan man in P2, he's got 10-lap-old hards. Afro, who's just taken the lead, has 1-lap-old softs. And everything now should be working in his favor going towards the end of this race. P1 looks pretty safe considering the tyre selection. P2 looks pretty safe considering the gap. But P3 still very much up for grabs. Pantry Star sets the fastest lap of the race at 1:44. He's down in P5 on a fresh set of softs. Seems the gap is too big. He's not going to be able to make up any more positions unless somebody ahead makes a critical error. And Andre wants that podium position, but Mr. M is definitely not going to hand it to him. Gap at the front, Afro pulling away, 3 seconds is that gap, so P1 Afro, Divan P2, that seems to be the order. Then Andre, still under pressure. Further down the field, Venom makes his way past Wasp, P9, P10 switching positions. Top Gun still in the hunt for P7 in this race. Every other battle on track seems to be decided. So we're going to sit with this battle here. This is the battle for the final podium position. Mr. M versus Andre. McLaren Mercedes versus AlphaTauri. Final lap of the race. Here is your leader. Divan P2. Hasn't been able to win this race, hasn't had enough to stay with Afro, but he's had a really good, consistent race, done exactly what he needed to do. Now he just needs to bring this car home, collect the points for the evening, and look ahead to next week. As for Mr. Rem and Andre, they can't look forward to next week just yet. They're still very much thinking about tonight. Who's going to take P3? Mr. Rem versus Andre. McLaren versus AlphaTauri. Soon to be the Visa Cash App RB racing team. And unfortunately for yous at home that are waiting for me to mess that name up, I will not be calling them that. RB Racing is enough. The front race is almost done for Afro. He goes over the line. Or does he? There we go, Afro over the line, almost putting brakes on the checkered flag. Divan goes P2. Mr. Rem still defending from Andre till the very end. And it's going to be Mr. Rem P3, Andre P4. Wait for Pantry Star to come over the line. And what a race. Wasn't a race of lots of drama. Wasn't a race of a lot of passing. But it was a race that required resilience, required concentration. The rain came, then it went away. You had to be on your toes, deciding your strategy. Couldn't simply go with what you had set before the game. Quick thinking and concentration in changing conditions. Already a feat just to get to the end. To everyone who joined us, I want to thank you for joining the stream, staying with us from beginning to end. As for the viewer who didn't seem to be too happy with the quality of the racing, I don't really know what to say. You watched for an hour, so I guess it wasn't that bad. Well done to all the competitors this evening. Obviously no retirements in the sprint race, just the one in the feature race. So some really good driving, not a lot of mistakes, not a lot of accidents. And there are your official results for round 4, season 6. Afro, got that wrong. Afro wins the race for Aston Martin, Divan P2, Mr. Rem P3. Then we've got Andre P4, Pantry Star P5, Harsh Cartoon P6, Virus P7, Top Gun P8. And then we have Venom and Chums making up the points in P9 and P10. As for the rest of the field, Wasp came over the line in P11, Skull P12, Gotzi 13, Reezy 14, Atmagozi 15. Disguise makes up the field in 16th place, and Ulrich was the only DNF on the night, making a mistake in the wet on slick tyres. Thank you, Death Queen. Thanks for staying from beginning to end, and thanks for being active in the comment section. I will be back tomorrow night with SAFRL Tier 1, and then again on Wednesday for Tier 2. Hopefully I see you then. If you haven't subscribed, remember to subscribe, and leave a like on the video to show your support. I'll see you on Monday night, and if you don't join me for SAFRL, I'll see you next week Sunday. Cheers.